So at this point, you've probably got guests who are calling your church home. What they're really doing is calling your Sunday service home. They're identifying with your church, but now they need to begin connecting with the body life of your church, which is probably some sort of membership process, biblical educational element like small groups or some sort of Bible studies, and the opportunity to serve in the ministry. See, small groups, Bible study, ministry, these are usually the main tenets of your church, but it's never quite clear to people how to get involved in these areas. They love your preaching, they love your church, but it's like being on the outside, not knowing how to get in. They're there, but they're not engaging yet. They're not fully immersed in the mission of your church and the purposes of your church. So you've got to find a way to get a guest to connect and eventually become a fully engaged member. What you need is an onboarding ramp, a way to make it easy to connect people with the different aspects of your church. Hey, I'm Ariel Neves. I'm the founder of Thrive Church Coaching. I'm also the discipleship pastor at Christ Tabernacle. So in the last two videos, we've given you some overview of our attending to belonging process. In our first video, we talked about my number one tip to get guests to call your church home. Then in our second video, we talked about how to create a process that will help these guests grow. Now, let's talk about a process for getting people connected to the body life of your church. For us, we call it Getting Started. Getting Started has 4 elements. It's 101, which is the first week of the month, 201, which is the second week of the month, 301, which is the third week of the month, 401, which is the fourth week of the month. At one point, we used to have a 8-week membership class because we just wanted to make sure that they knew everything they needed to know to become members of our church, that they had sound doctrine and their understanding and moral character and all those things were in place. And in the middle of a pastor's meeting, we were having this conversation and someone said, man, it's easier for individuals to get into heaven than it is for them to get into our church. And that's when I realized, man, we've got a couple of things backwards. And so we moved into this Getting Started process. 4 classes. 101, strictly we just talk about membership. And here we lay out what we expect from our members, and we also lay out what members can expect from us. We talk about the vision of the church. We talk about the passions of the church. We also talk about some of the aspects of the church that we want to make sure that they exemplify. And we use terms like representing the family, and every family member has chores. And we use those terms to communicate the value of ministry. And everyone in the family represents the family. We tell those stories because we want to make sure people fully understand that when they become members of our church, they don't just represent us, but they represent their Father in heaven. And that's 101. And when 101 is finished, they have an opportunity to fill out what we call a family covenant. And the family covenant, in essence, lays out some of the expectations, behavior, lifestyles that we want to make sure that every single member carries out. Once they fill out the family covenant and they hand it in, at that point, they're officially members. Then we have our 201 process. And so 201 is simply about discipleship. And really our goal is to help people become self-feeders. And what we mean by that is this. So people have a tendency to rely on their pastor to hear from God. What that really says to me is this, that they only are going to hear from God on Sundays. But what we really want from them is we want them to develop an individual relationship. Just imagine this, if you only ate once a week, you'd probably be fragile and weak, and you wouldn't be able to do day-to-day operations on your own strength. And so when someone as a believer is only eating once a week, is only spending time with God once a week, their spiritual walk is fragile. And so when the enemy comes, they're easily knocked over. And so what do we want to do? Well, what 201 is purposed to do is to help believers, help individuals begin to develop their own private time with God, their own personal time. We talk about discipleship and spiritual growth in those elements. We talk about small groups. For us, small groups is such an important element when it comes to the body life, when it comes to creating community and growth in individuals. And so at the end of our 201 class, we have a next step. And that next step is joining our life group or a small group or a community group. Or for many of you, maybe it's a Bible study. But at the end, what you want to do is make sure they have a next step. Then 301. 301 is one of my favorite courses. The purpose of 301 is to help people identify how is it that God has created them. See, people have been uniquely and wonderfully made. I mean, that's what the Bible says. But here's the problem. Even though God has deposited giftings and talents in people, people don't know that. They don't know the giftings that God has deposited in them. They don't know their personality types. They don't realize that God has defined them and designed them with specific purpose. And what does 301 do? 301 is specifically all about that. We do three things. We do a personality assessment. People walk away understanding their personality type. We do a spiritual gifts assessment. They walk away understanding their gifts. Some of them have the gift of an evangelist. Doesn't mean they're going to go hit the streets and evangelize. What that means is they have a passion to share the gospel with others. Some of them have the giftings of a pastor. Doesn't mean that we're going to give them the office of a pastor, that we're going to hire them the following week. What it means is that they have a love for the people and they want to wrap their arms around people and help people grow. So we've got personality types, we've got spiritual giftings, and then we got passions. And so people are able to then communicate what are the things that God has deposited in their hearts. We take those three elements and we say, hey, this is how God has created you. And then this is what's great. Based on that, we have a chart, a formula that says, based on those giftings, personality types, and those passions, we determine this is where you fit. We line those giftings up. We line those personality types up with ministry opportunities, which leads us to the fourth week, 401. In 401, what we do is we then give every individual an opportunity to take their ministry giftings, their passions, their assessments, and actually determine what are the ministries that I'm going to serve in. So it's kind of like a ministry expo per se. There's tables and people are able to walk around, meet the ministry leaders. They're there really to determine where can I serve, where can I fit. And then based on that, we connect them and we get them involved in ministry. And so that in essence summarizes our getting started process. See, when it comes to getting your guests to connect with the body life of the church, there's many ways to accomplish it. But you have to ensure that your process fits with the following. 1, you've got to start with the end in mind. What do you want your people to look like? And then you've got to work backwards from there. 2, you need to think steps, not programs. If you want to get people from point A to point B, think about how they can get there. 3, you've got to communicate clearly and consistently to your guests. Clearly because you want to make sure that they understand what their next steps are. Consistently because you want to make it part of culture. So I'm excited and I look forward to hearing about any other ideas that you have on connecting guests to the body life of the church. Please share with me your strategies and ideas. I'd love to hear from you. Just share in the comment section below and also hit the like button. In our next video, I'm going to share with you some philosophical approaches that you may need to adjust in order to get guests to call your church home. I'm also going to introduce you to our Attending to Belonging program. This is a 6-week program where I coach pastors and leaders through the challenges of connecting people. It's a process I've been following for the last 5 years, and we've seen some great results from it. Trust me, you do not want to miss this. Well, that's it for now. Thanks again for watching. See you at the next video.